So, when it comes to the UK, things are getting pretty strange. Because you must admit, every single day we're seeing stuff that we've never seen before. So what I've done is I've made a list of the worst articles that we've seen recently. And I gotta tell you, stick to the end, because it gets far worse as we go on. But we didn't exactly start great either, because we got Rupert Lowe with a tweet here about the head of diversity, inclusion and belonging at the BBC, with the salary up to £125,000 a year. And we'll quickly move on to the second story. I don't want to spend too much time on this one. But 125 grand for a diversity job at the BBC. There is no way on earth they're getting value for money. It doesn't even, they could be doing anything. It could be this person here with purple hair. There's just no way on earth it's worth that amount of money. That and all of the other diversity jobs they've got as well. You imagine what the total is. And speaking of Rupert Lowe, the very next day we saw this happen. And obviously we've come quite a long way since then. This is of course whilst he was still with the Reform Party. But I really don't think anyone expected this. Just Rupert Lowe being kicked out of Reform. I gotta tell you, it changes the party and it probably changes the political landscape. But something that will never change is the government's ability to waste money. Because we saw that the Home Office was accused of spending £10,000 on a lavish dinner at a restaurant in the Gherkin. That's one of the tallest buildings in London, by the way. So the dynamic that there's politicians on top of the Gherkin eating £10,000 food, whilst the people on the ground floor struggle. Because first of all, there was a £750 tip. Honestly, I don't know why anyone needs a £750 tip. Obviously, it would have been a couple of people. But 750 quid? With our money? Then there's the 20% VAT as well. So you've got to wrap your head around that dynamic. The government spent 10 grand on dinner, but 20% of that goes back to the government. Come to think about it, it's kind of like having a rewards credit card. You know, you get 1% back on your purchases if you're lucky, whereas the government automatically get a minimum of 20%. And then we had things like £462 on 10 bottles of wine, and then 16 bottles of Pinot Grigio for £768. And they had to hire the room for 3,600 quid. Like I said, whilst the people on the ground floor struggle. And if that didn't confirm to you that the government are here to waste money, well, hopefully this next story will. Because it says that Whitehall has frozen staff credit cards after spending rose to £675 million. And as you can see there, they were spending £1,200 on Nespresso coffee pods. There were things like DJ equipment. In fact, I'm reading it here. They've got £2,500 at a fashionable shoe shop in Barbados. Then £2,500 on DJ equipment. They bought almost £50,000 worth of beer, wine and spirits, and they spent £87,000 on hotel rooms for one trip to South Africa. And then there was £673 on a website that sells life-size cardboard cutouts of celebrities, including Harry Styles and the Spice Girls. So like I said, the government are here to waste money, and they are doing an incredible job. And speaking of people taking things that aren't theirs, we saw this the very next day in Tesco. Because you can see the kiosk here and they've just got these metal bars just the whole way round, as well as the protective glass too. And you remember these initial shutters like back in the day where they do the tobacco and the vapes? When those shutters first came in, people thought that that was overkill. Now they got the front of Tesco's looking like a bank and I'm pretty sure there's still more to go. But then came quite possibly my favourite story of the month, where we had this guy he's made a chair out of his BBC licence fee letters. You know the letters that they send you when you decide to stand up for yourself, and the notifications that they send when you just cancel the TV licence. He's basically just taken each one that he's got over time, and he's basically just, paper mache'd it to the chair? Honestly, I've never seen anything like this before. And I did say as well in the pinned comment of this particular video, that if that video was to get 10,000 likes, I think it's on 3,000 at the moment, but if that video got 10,000 likes, I said that I would personally make one of these and I would send it to Chili John Carney, completely free of charge as well. I got a feeling that is right up his street. But unfortunately, it's not all fun and games. Because we saw this tweet from Jonathan Wong, where he's comparing Hiroshima to London. And as you can see there on screen, it is an absolute night and day difference. Because you must admit, the thing with Japan is they're all Japanese. So they're all on the same page and they all understand the situation. But when it comes to London, they're pretty much speaking every single language. And as a result of nobody being on the same page at all, you just get stuff like litter in the streets. You get fights in the tube station. You get all sorts of crime in all sorts of areas, as well as scams and pickpocketing. So they say diversity is our strength, but comparing these two photos, I don't know, Japan looks pretty nice. And just as an example of that, we got this story here the very next day. Because whilst Japan is allowed to embrace its Japanese traditions, it turns out that England's not allowed to do the same. Well, unless you're a different religion, but we'll get into that. Because this is from Computer Exchange, and it says we will no longer be able to demo products to customers who are wearing hats or face coverings. Basically, if you want to go in and try the Xbox before you buy it, they're not going to let you if you're wearing a hat, except in the circumstance of wearing religious attire. So like I said, if you want to wear a hat, you're not allowed to test the products. But if you want to go in wearing 17 different burqas at once, is that possible? I guess it'd be very warm, but I guess it is possible. But yeah, if you wanted to wear 17 burqas at once, apparently that's absolutely fine. And let's face it as well, a large part of their customer base are going to be British. Whereas now, it looks like they've just sold them down the river. And speaking of migrants, right, the very next day we saw this. Because it's a Freedom of Information request where someone asked, what are the 10 most common or popular places of birth recorded in the DVLA records? Essentially the people that hold UK driver's licenses. Where are these people born? And as you can see on screen here, once you get the UK, England and Scotland and Wales out of the way, we're left with 1.2 million Indians on the road, as well as almost 800,000 Pakistan Petes. And then obviously we've got the Polish and the Romanians. I said at the time that those guys are everywhere, and you must admit, to be fair, even they would admit, Polish and Romanians, they are absolutely all over the place. And also what you've got to remember as well, is the amount of people in these places and in these cultures that are going to be sharing licenses. I don't know about you, right? I've seen a couple of stories in the past about where people take lessons for other people. You give them a couple of £100 and they'll just take your driving lesson. I have never seen, I'm sure it happens. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I have never seen an English person get charged with that. Like I said, I'm sure it happens. But every single time it's just Mohammed doing the driving lesson for Mohammed. That's every single time I've seen it. That's the case. And then straight after that, me and Paz49, we went to the Reform conference in Birmingham. I gotta tell you, I didn't expect, what we saw on that trip, and what happened when we tried to film inside. I did not expect any of that. And also as well, one of the running themes in the comments was saying that my camera work and the editing, it actually made Birmingham look like quite a nice place. Which, if you've ever been, that is saying something. So if you haven't checked out the video where me and Paz49 went on an adventure in Birmingham, I would highly recommend to do so. And if you want to see more information as well as more adventures, then make sure that you become one of the 62,414 subscribers.
This country has gone crazy.